dear friends and colleagues, on behalf of the Hamasadi Party in Europe, I'm deeply touched and honored to be invited to such a gathering to give voice to the suffering people of Afghanistan and share a small part of the grief that millions of Afghans suffer. Afghanistan has only known wars, military invasions, destruction, destitution, misery over the past 3 decades. Today it is once again a battlefield among powers vying for influence in the heart of Asia. The game masters have continued to create victims, oppressors, victors, terrorists, peace-loving dictators and masters, each group changing rules as the rule of the game changes. Over the past 3 decades, neither the creators nor the created have changed, but just the rules we play. The same characters were once allies, freedom fighters, democratic-minded, and moderates. With the time, the same characters are enemies, terrorists, fanatics, and downright monsters. Such changes in the rules of the game in the Afghan amphitheater have cost hundreds and thousands of lives, dignity, and basic human rights. Let's not forget the disastrous adventurism of the Soviet leadership in late 1970s, which killed directly and through its installed puppet regime nearly 2 million people and permanently maimed another 2 to 4 million people out of an estimated population of about 18 million at the time. The Soviet invasion in a more than a decade-long occupation was the source of miseries in subsequent years. In the past 9 years, the occupation forces led by the US make fool of the world by asserting that they are there to bring peace, democracy, and freedom to Afghan people. But, in fact, it is nothing other than a cynical excuse for strategic, economic, and military interests, once again at the expense of ordinary Afghans. The US and NATO claim that they are fighting terrorism, but in fact, they themselves are terrorizing our people through their bombings and use of dangerous weapons. Most of the people they fight today are their own creation and once hailed as the best allies the US can have. The installed puppet regime is nothing other than a junior lieutenant whose only job is to follow certain minor instructions. The regime's allies, friends, and foes are already defined, and there is little room for dissent from the game master's official line. Today, the best friends of the US and NATO in Afghanistan are warlords and drug lords like Abdul Rasul Sayyaf, Karim Khalili, Qasim Fahim, Dr. Abdullah Burhanuddin Rabbani, Muhammad Muhakkik, Atta Muhammad, and many other such murderers and dark-minded individuals and groups who have a long history of human rights violations and atrocities against defenseless people of Afghanistan. There are claims of positive changes in Afghanistan since the US and NATO invasion. Let's list just a few. 1. Afghanistan produces over 90% of world opium and has become a major hub of international drug mafia activities. 2. Afghanistan is the second most corrupt country in the world, where billions of dollars of aid are being looted by the warlords, ministers, national and international NGOs. The foreign troops themselves are engaged in the drug trafficking and corruption, which has made the life of ordinary Afghans bleak and unbearable. 3. The UN estimates that 7.4 billion people, or more than a third of the population, do not eat more than one meal a day. Another 8.5 million people, or 37% of the population, are seasonally hungry. 4. Malnutrition is the highest in the world. 5. Access to education, in particular for women, is the lowest in the world. 6. Maternity death rate are the highest in the world, and so on. On the other hand, however, fancy large castles have sprung up in various parts of the country. Individuals owning private jets, airlines, banks, and large properties in different parts of the world. These are not just any individuals. Indeed, they are the empire's chosen ones. They are the new faces of democracy and social justice, some of whom were at some point considered terrorists. While the game masters choose players and designate the good and the bad, and continuously change functions and stands of identity, the ordinary Afghans are caught in between and have their share of and continue to suffer. The US is not alone in the feast. Of course, minor regional lieutenants also have their share of the feast. The Taliban and the Hikmatyar groups were once created and heavily supported by the US and its allies, but somehow upset the master in the rules of the game had to change.